Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 31st day, last day of July, coming into August. We've got training camps, preseason coming up here in a week in the NFL, some MLB trade deadline stuff. I do have a solution for the Mets, and it's not this big, sexy, hot take solution. It's very simple. I'll talk about that. Sean Payton has more woes. Aaron Rodgers speaks out on that. I'll go into that. And Joe Burrow. There's could be some more to this calf strain after looking into it than beats the eye. I'll play that. Also, let's see. Jonathan Taylor. Your agent really don't want to embarrass the owner, your boss, publicly. I'll talk about that. A little bit of back and forth. There's no real right or wrong situation or person in that Colts situation. But first, we'll go ahead and take our first and only break. I'll be back here in 49 seconds here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Alrighty then. I guess we'll start off here because it looks like Denver's going to be in the market to get another receiver here in the Broncos. Okay. Now, last week, let's rewind a little bit. Couple of different things going on here with Denver. The light is shined on them probably a little stronger than Peyton wants to admit it. But going back to last week, he makes the comment that this may have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That's how bad it was. Okay. That's Sean Payton getting a lot of heat around the league for that. He's talking about Nathaniel Hackett, former coach there of Denver Broncos. And, of course, a few days later, he said this, if I can get it here. A few days later, he said this. Backtrack.
I had one of those moments where I still had my Fox hat on and not my coaching hat on. And, I said this to the team in the meeting yesterday. We've had a great off season relative to that, and I've been preaching that message. And here I am, the veteran, stepping in it. And, it was a learning experience for me. It was a mistake. Obviously, I needed a little bit more filter. There's a pound of flesh for these guys. And as a coach, you stick up for them. And after a while, we're past that season last year. And I said what I said, and obviously I needed it a little bit more restraint.
And I do believe him. I think he was thinking that he was Monday morning on Fox Sports Radio, whether it be with LeVar Arrington or Colin Cowherd or somebody like that, getting in that hot take mode. And I think he caught himself and realized that that is not a wise idea, especially you got to play this team in week. You got to play this team in week 5 this season, which is great for shows like mine. A lot of hype leading up to that game. Pickles going to be a great one. But so Aaron Rodgers, who is now Nathaniel Hackett, used to work with Rodgers in the Green Bay Packers year before last, obviously, and then last year he was the head coach of Denver. and now he's the OC there, offensive coordinator with the Jets here. So here is, I just realized a couple stories I missed. Kind of a busy day here lately. I tell you, it's a pretty busy news day. If I can find this really good quote here from this is Peter Schrager of the NFL Network, and he works some with Fox, interviewing Aaron Rodgers, and of course he pokes the bear. He pokes the bear with and Rodgers being what Rodgers does. He's gonna say what he really thinks.
I'm not going to ask you about Sean Payton's comments directly, but I will ask you to maybe address Nathaniel Hackett as a coach and what he means to you and what he can bring to this Jets team. That story goes out there. I had about 1 million texts from people in the coaching community saying that was out of line. Yet you see Hackett out here. He's still pumped up. I don't think it affects.
Yeah, so Schrager says, listen, man, I got a lot of coaches saying that he was out of line with this. And he's feeling Rodgers up, and Rodgers sitting there holding the mic. This is over the weekend. Listen up.
Him as much as maybe it affects everyone on the outside, and yet you and him have this great bond and union together where you've always had his back, he's always had yours.
Yeah, I love Nathaniel Hackett, and those comments were very surprising. For a coach to do that to another coach, my love for Hackett goes deep. You know, we had some great years together in Green Bay, kept in touch. Love him and his family. He's an incredible family man, incredible dad. And on the field, you know, he's arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. Just his approach to it, how he makes it fun, how he cares about the guys, just how he goes about his business with respect, with leadership, with honesty, with integrity. And it made me feel bad that someone who's accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some sort of easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. I thought it was way out of line and inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
Oh, very Will Smith there, Carlos. Very Will Smith there. Keep my coach's name out of your mouth. So this is great. Great banner back and forth. Very WWE hype here. Big egos here. You know, Sean Payton, massive ego, real eager to get back into it. Aaron Rodgers, big ego, bigger than New York City, eager to get a shot at Sean Payton here. That's really good for sports talk radio, but it does cause a distraction on the team. I don't think that's a cliche, folks. That stuff really does call. Don't let your what's the old adage, Pickles? Don't let your mouth write checks your rear end can't cash. And a little bit of bad karma for Peyton and Denver at that. I mean, now Tim Patrick, who tore his ACL last camp, tore his Achilles. This camp is going to be out for the season. And then KJ Hamler is going to be out a few weeks with the procedure being done. So now you're looking at Cortland Sutton, a thin roster here. Of course, you got Jerry Jeudy, who was talked to be on the trading block at some point in the offseason. Those went away. You got Cortland Sutton. He was coming off of an injury as well last year now. Judy's a very talented player, I think, in Sean Payton's system. I do think that Wilson will be able to get him the football. But this team's going to be in need of wide receiver sooner than later. So they're going to be, Pickles, leaning heavily on this second-round pick, this Marvin Mims Jr., I want to say out of Oklahoma, be more heavily relied on than not. So it's going to be really interesting here. And going back to the comments initially, that being said, you know, I had this team winning about 11 games. They're going to need some depth at wide receiver. You've got guys like Jarvis Landry unsigned. He's 30 years old, had some injuries. You've got T.Y. Hilton, 33, still unsigned. Players like that will probably get looked at there. There's quite a few, not terrible free agents, but they're post 30 guys, that are still out there, and Peyton will take a chance on anybody. That's how he is. Maybe they bring in Antonio Brown. I wouldn't recommend it. That would be enough to drive me over the cliff if I'm a fan of Denver, the Broncos. Now, but that being said, Peyton was simply thinking out loud. The truth be told, what he said is what a lot of other coaches around the league, ex-coaches, sports commentators, hot take people, since the first talk about Hackett and his poor coaching job, the clock mismanagement in week 1 was so over the top in Seattle, and then it just kind of getting blown out by a bad Ram team that had multiple injuries up and down the offensive line, guys looking out of place here, mismanaging, losing to a team. I think they lost to the Colts at home on a Thursday night game. They're just way over their head. He was over his head, but he shouldn't have said that. It's okay for me to say that. Like Carlos was saying Friday, sports talk people like me to say it, but for another coach to say it, you're setting your team up to be distracted. And Peyton got a huge contract, a lot of it fully guaranteed. I'm sure he's got it ink tight. And he got a little bit ahead of himself. But this team, again, they're going to be in need of wide receivers. They do have above average defense. They've got some players here. They've got some good matchups. I do not think Wilson's washed up. I think he's going to be lighter. They're going to tighten that passing game up, and a lot of good things coming up there in Denver. Got a little bit of ahead of himself there, and I'm glad he finally owned it and said, yeah, that was pretty stupid, man. That was pretty stupid to me to say, especially when the kind of issues that keep mounting for Denver, and worst case scenario, this whole thing blows up and Wilson gets hurt and Peyton gets fired. He'll have a boatload of money to retire off of, and he is pretty good in the booth here. I think he's a good commentator, good opinion guy, good studio analyst guy. Who knows how long? Maybe he goes back to Fox. You got a guy like Jimmy Johnson's 80 plus years old. You don't know how long he's going to stay up there. You got a guy in the 70s, I want to say, in Terry Bradshaw. So he can get put on shows like that. But interesting story to follow. Going to be great for the build-up leading up to Denver and the Jets. Think both teams are going to be much better. As far as the Jets per se, I think this stuff like this really motivates this team. You add on top of that, Micaiah Becton, the right tackle, says his knee's feeling a whole lot better. He's been back practicing again. With Rodgers taking a massive pay cut there. I saw one article said, don't be inclined to in October, and it showed a picture of the Jets making another move and had a picture of Devontae Adams, which I brought up last week, that they could go after and afford a guy like Adams to add on to this team here and afford him when you've only got an $8 million cap hit. Everybody wants to know how good the line can block. You still got Dalvin Cook out there. He was in New York over the weekend. They got a lot of good things going their way right now. Breece Hall supposedly back practicing. Get a little depth there at the running back position. Guy like Corey Davis playing off of a Garrett Wilson. I've read that Mecole Hardman, he hit Mecole Hardman for a touchdown speedster there with Aaron Rodgers. So it's a lot of good things popping there in New York land. And everybody seems pretty grounded. They seem hungry and eager to win. They're not, acting. They don't come to me as a cocky team. They come off as a team that's hungry right now. And of course, it's just all talk, and they're in the media capital there up in New York. That being said, there's a lot to cheer about coming into this season here for the Jets. Pickle says go Jets. And Carlos says Antonio Brown should not be allowed to return without a brain scan and mental health evaluation. Yeah, anybody that takes their clothes off like that in the stadium, you definitely got to have his head examined. I second that. No way under the sun. If my team signs a guy like Antonio Brown, I say I will not follow him that year. Total disavow. And Antonio Brown. That won't happen, though. He did take Des Bryant in when Bryant had a bad he had a bad look there in Dallas, smarting off to the receivers coach here, always wanting the ball there. And it was in one of that All or Nothing documentary with Netflix that I was telling you about. Got real smart with Derek Dooley, who was their receiver coach. And, of course, causing Dak's numbers to go down because he's always wanting the ball. And the only team that took him, I think, was the New Orleans Saints here. Okay. All right. Now, I talked a little bit about this with Mad New Yorker on Friday, switching gears here. Joe Burrow over the weekend, I read that he will also do what we're talking about with the Netflix documentary, this quarterback documentary, where I don't know if it's going to be 3 quarterbacks every year or not, but that's what they had last season with Patrick Mahomes. Great, by the way. Man, was that good. Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and, of course, Marcus Mariota. You got 2 duds there and a mega star there. I think it was just whoever said yes. And, shoot for the moon and get the stars and that particular situation. Now, so again, let's rewind back to Thursday. They didn't have a show Thursday. I had an appointment with a foot doctor and bought a new pair of shoes and all that good stuff. And I was watching this and reading about this on my phone here. Thursday afternoon, Joe Burrow went down with this calf strain. Going to be out several weeks. Now, listen to the way the next day, listen to how Zach Taylor comments on this. And I'll tell you, it doesn't, listening to the actual playback, folks, it doesn't really look that good. But Burrow can surprise you. Burrow's very tough. But here's Zach Taylor the next day after this.
Calf strain. It'll take several weeks, and that's the information we got right now.
Several weeks, take it into the regular season potentially?
Several weeks.
How much time with Joe at camp of practice would he need to be ready for you comfortably?
Joe got more days this July than he's ever had in the NFL. And so
several weeks is several weeks. And then he goes back and says, well, he got more time in July than he did in the past. Well, a year prior to that day, to that specific day, which was what was Thursday? The 26th. He had his appendix taken out the year before that. And I'll tell you what, that didn't sound too good. Now, so I looked up calf strain. All right. And when you use the phrase several weeks here, so I started looking at some of these MD websites here on, let's see. God, I got so much stuff here. That's ESPN story. I'll cover it tomorrow. Too much football news on today. Okay. So I'm looking at this calf strain symptoms and management, Orthopedic Center for Sports Medicine. All right. You heard what he said. I just heard what he said. A grade 1 calf strain may heal within 8 days. Okay, so he had, and I think I mentioned this Friday show, he had tape on it before he just went down. It was a non-contact injury, put pressure on it, had tape already on it. Then he goes down, and then now they're saying out several weeks. This is what it says on, again, this, I looked this up here on the Orthopedic Center for Sports Medicine. A grade 1 calf strain may heal within 8 days, but may have been reported to take an average of 16 weeks to return to pre-injury level of performance. Okay? We're talking 6 weeks and about 3 days to week 1 against Cleveland. We're talking 6 weeks, 16 weeks, Pickles, according to this site right here. It could take to get to pre-injury level of performance up to 16 weeks. So we're talking essentially 10 weeks into the regular season. And as I mentioned last year on the 27th of July, back in 2022, he had his appendix taken out. You say, well, does it really matter? Well, yeah, he had the appendix taken out. He practiced leading up to week 1. All right. Well, I went back and looked at their schedule last year. They lost their first 2 games. They lost their opener to Pittsburgh. He was just a tick off in that Pittsburgh game. Plus, J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, the younger brother, did what T.J. Watt does. He rushed the passer. Pittsburgh gets the win, gets the upset. Then they go play Dallas with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Michael Parsons plays his part, and they knock these guys out as well. And with Trevor Siemian, the backup quarterback there, Siemian is a former 7th-round pick. Yeah, he started a few games, looked good for about a cup of coffee with Denver. But, there's a reason why he's kind of bounced around the league. These guys, they look good for about 5 minutes. Then you realize that that's why they're a backup quarterback, because they start to look average to below average with the team they're on. So my thing is, listen, you think about comparing him to a guy like Mahomes, who played through that high ankle sprain. I understand that he is tough as nails, but I was leaning towards picking this team to win the Super Bowl, and they still may be fine. But you're saying a potential 16 weeks to get back to pre-injury performance here, not mention the fact that he may actually miss a couple games. This team's got to play average at quarterback, will not win the AFC North. As much as I like this Bengals team, I like the fact that they signed Orlando Brown, the best on the market left tackle they could possibly get, and a tremendous upgrade from, was it Jonas Williams, the other left tackle they had? That's fine. Like their defense, like their defensive coordinator. Don't love the head coach, but he's found a way to gel right with Burrow. This guy was on his way to getting fired, and he was also being criticized as a really bad coach. He was getting some of the heat. Listen to guys like Mark Schlereth, some are former players and coaches. He was getting some of that Nathaniel Hackett type of heat, before the savior named Joe Burrow's drafted in 2020, right? With the number 1 overall pick. They had the number 1 overall pick because they had the worst record in the league. But, this team, they got to play at Cleveland week 1. There's a good chance Cleveland's going to win that game, Now, maybe he's practicing within 2 weeks left to go. Maybe I'll change that scenario. But then they got to play Baltimore. 2 weeks later, they've got to play at Tennessee off a Monday night game. And about week 8, which still there in this 10-week period here, at San Francisco, then Buffalo, who's chomping at the bit to get back at them after getting humiliated in the playoff game. So it's not an easy ride for these guys. I'm leaning now towards maybe picking Cleveland to win that division. Haven't made my mind up. Not saying this could be a calf. If anybody could do it, it's Joe Burrow. Mac from the Mac and Jack show, John McGraw, also known as Mac. That's a show, Mac and Jack and Jim Jeffcoat, doesn't get a lot of advertisement. Doesn't get a lot of marketing, but it's a very good show on Sunday mornings. I come on there 8:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Central for about 30 minutes before I go to church. And Mac was asking me, he said, do you think that he's still going to get a big contract considering the fact got injured in the Super Bowl a couple years ago? He come off an ACL prior to that. Okay. Now he gets injured again with this calf strain. And I say, listen, this guy, Joe Burrow, has more wins, playoff wins as a quarterback in 3 years, than any other quarterback in the history of this organization, with the cheapest owner out there, and Mike Brown, 80-plus-year-old Mike Brown there, who's also the general manager. But nobody pays attention to him because they're with Cincinnati. They're building an indoor facility because of Joe Burrow. That's what I've been reading over the past 2 years about Burrow. This guy has nearly a 70% completion percentage, and some of them shots are downfield. This is not necessarily an air quote West Coast offense. And when you got two guys can go downfield like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But all that being said, you got to think to yourself, is he pressing a little too much? And why he's getting these injuries? Both injured. The one in the Super Bowl, I thought he held on to the ball too long. Of course, he had a bad line coming in. And the one in that game against Washington where he really got hurt, ACL, MCL. I think it was like Chase. Oh, God, what's the guy's name? Chase O'Donnell or whatever. He's also hurt. But the defensive end there, that for the Commanders, hit him pretty hard. I thought he was hanging on too long, looking upfield. He's doing what you're supposed to do, but you still got to have that pocket awareness there to protect yourself and stay out of harm's way. And he has a tendency to do that. He's got a great release, man. But so he knows he's not going to say this publicly, but he knows that he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's wanting to carry this team. He grew up in Ohio. He's born in Iowa. He wants to be that guy. You know, he's embracing it. But could you say he's pressing too much? You know, could he be pressing too much? Your calf strain is putting too much strain on your calf, and you actually strain the calf. You're pressing too much here, being that perfectionist. So that's something to think about. And to answer that question, not to sound like a politician, you still got to roll the dice with the guy, man. You know, when you get a new facility built, when you're the most winningest quarterback, more playoff wins than anybody else, with a coach that's subpar, if you ask me, that's subpar, and Zach Taylor, a quarterback coach. This guy wasn't even a coordinator with Sean McVay when he was hired on from the LA Rams. Ed Orgeron, his former coach at LSU. Now, he was fired after Burrow leaves after going to one of historically good season there in LSU. But all that being said, I still get a sense that he's probably not as flexible as a Patrick Mahomes. He's not quite as durable as a Mahomes. So I'll probably give Mahomes that edge back. Remember earlier this year, after the Buffalo game, I gave Burrow that edge. Burrow can make more throws. I get it. It is a passing league. It's about precision. But Burrow's starting to come off like a Marino. One trick guy that on a decent team to good team, and not going to get the accolades that Montana or even Elway got during his era. Montana with 4 rings. Elway, 5 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl wins. Comes off more as a Marino, not quite as thick or flexible as a Pat Mahomes. not the endurance of pain that a threshold of pain that a Mahomes can endure. As I mentioned last week during the on that Netflix special where he turned and high ankle sprain in the Jacksonville divisional game. So I got to give Mahomes that slight edge, man. I got to give it back to him. But as far as the question, you got to roll the dice. You got to pay him because this team is not even a playoff team without Burrow. If Burrow doesn't play at all, they're definitely not winning this division. They're not a playoff team with a much improved Pittsburgh team, a better on paper anyways, a better Baltimore team, and the favorite, and I still say this, the favorite now with Burrow, we're not sure about what Burrow is right now. It would be the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, much better against the run now coming into next year. A full off season with Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper together. David Njoku, okay? One of the better offensive lines in all of football, still in all of football in that Cleveland team. Not a really big weakness anywhere on Cleveland. Maybe Stefanski's not the greatest coach. He's a good play designer. He's not the greatest coach in the world, but he did win Coach of the Year a couple of years ago with Baker Mayfield, okay? They're going to be a lot better than people think. They're going to get to the playoffs. I don't know if it's going to be as a wild card or division winner, but right now I'm probably going to lean division winner. I've got to monitor this Burrow injury and see how fast he heals from this one. Because, you got the calf string, then you had the ACL. I mean, it's just eventually you got to start asking yourself, folks, is he going to start getting gun shy now? Is he going to be like Tom Brady was when Brady came back from his ACL in 2009? Remember 27? They had the 07. They had the great season, undefeated, heartbreaking Super Bowl. I drafted him in fantasy. First game of the season, tears his ACL. Player for Kansas City takes him down, tears his ACL, win 11 games, don't make the playoffs with Matt Castle. The next year, he's a little hesitant there. They get put out. They make it to the playoffs, but they get put out in the first round. He was a little gun shy, seeing ghosts there. Took him a while to get that back. So that's something that people's not talking about for Joe Burrow. And this is Tom freaking Brady. Now, we'll commend that Joe Burrow did come back from that ACL, MCL, where Carson Wentz still hasn't came back. By the way, Carson Wentz hadn't signed with anybody yet. And I think he may sign, with somebody. Shoot, he may sign as a backup with this team, right? But you got to accumulate the Super Bowl injury, the ACL, this calf strain that seems more serious than it's being let on. Is he going to start to develop some gun shy and lose that edge that he had coming out of LSU? We don't know. But for a guy that loves Joe Burrow, you got to ask these questions, man. You got to ask these questions. Carlos says Burrow doesn't slide or throw the ball away. Yeah, he doesn't do that. He's really good at the back shoulder. He's got that down like an Aaron Rodgers. He's bullet accurate. He could throw the ball in the keyhole. That's great. But sometimes you're going to have to elude the rush and simply throw that ball away. I would try to turn him more into now he might not want to hear this because he's got T. Higgins and big play guys. But Jamar Chase can catch 12, 15 balls in a game if it was up to me. Because I know he can play slot. He can play close to the line of scrimmage. He's got sticky hands. And then my down the field guy would mainly be Higgins. Now, obviously, with Chase's speed, we can use him downhill. But my thing is, and I said that they should do this in a draft. I said they should go after Jahmyr Gibbs in the mock draft and let Joe Mixon go. He needs to be more of a West Coast type of guy. He's bullet accurate. He's got a very quick release. We don't need him hanging onto the ball just to get a few more yards and getting blasted in that pocket. We know that the league is protecting these guys, but still, if you're hanging on to that ball, you're still free reign from shoulders down. You can't get hit up high, and you can't get hit below the knees because of the Brady rule there in 2008. But you could still get plastered, and everybody gets hit, and he's in a division where they will knock your head off. He's had his head knocked. Ask Ben Roethlisberger. You know, that's a black and blue division, man. He's playing Myles Garrett in week 1 if he plays. So that I would try to install some more West Coast type of offenses where you're checking it down to the running back. You want to keep that defense honest. And then when they get a little lax back there, you want to test them up top there and see what you can get up top. If Zach Taylor is thinking on his feet, that's what I would do. Sometimes you got to get a feel for your guy, man. He's your pilot, you know. He's everything for these guys. So Chase Young, that's who I was trying to think. It was Chase Young, I think, that initiated that really bad hit back in 2020, his rookie year, that we thought that would take him a year to come back from. Of course, they went to the Super Bowl the next year, man. He definitely instills a lot of confidence, per se, into that team. Okay, Jonathan Taylor. Man, I tell you what, this running back thing has blown up. I mean, the running backs, every one of these guys that spoke out, they're really ticked off. Starting with Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs leaving Las Vegas, right? Still ain't done nothing. Man, I was reading some of his resume. He is impressive. That dude is impressive, and he's healthy. You know, I don't know why some people don't want to make a run at him. But Taylor, he's been Mr. Everything for the Colts, but he has been injured lately. I want to say he only played 11 games last year. And, you know, during all this that came about last week with the running backs coming out and speaking out and everything. So Jim Irsay put his 2 cents in on social media. I think this was Twitter. Okay. What does he say? Jim Irsay. Now he's the owner now. He is the owner, and he puts out this comment here. This is Jim Irsay. This is after Taylor saying, "Listen, man, just want to be compensated." Blah blah blah. And he's speaking into the ether, not directly at Irsay. And then this punk agent here, this Malik Kawa, which, by the way, agents should never do this publicly, said, saying in bad faith is not okay, here we go. Let me read the comments by Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts first. He says, "We negotiated a CBA that took years of effort and hard work and compromise in good faith by both sides," Irsay said in a statement shared on social media, to say now that a specific player wants another negotiation after the fact is inappropriate. Some agents are selling bad faith. Irsay later clarified ESPN that was not directed at Taylor. Then this punk agent here, should never say this publicly, even though the owner does, who's been a little bit of a loose cannon the last few years, and this agent here, this owner, Jim Irsay, with the Colts here, this Malik Kawhi responded to Twitter saying, saying bad faith is not paying your top offensive player. Kawhi later tweeted he doubted Taylor's relationship with the Colts could be fixed. Doubted it could be fixed. Why would you say that publicly? You know, after reports of Taylor then said Sunday night that he wants to be traded. You know, And then Irsay comes back and says, if I die tonight, Jonathan Taylor's out of the league. No one's going to miss us. Irsay said in a statement. But then he says, we're not, he simply says they're not trading Taylor, not now or in October. Then the news comes out. This is more to it, right? Then the news comes out that I'm reading this from Spot Track. Jonathan Taylor needs to tread lightly with the potential holdout. Not only will be fined $40,000 a day, but the Colts risk of losing a current season, which could render him restricted free agent in March. There's reports Sunday night saying that the Colts could put him, because he's complaining of back pain, that was deemed from a to be pre-existing issue. The team is now considering placing him on the non-football injury list, which could result in him not being paid for the regular season. And going back to the Spot Track saying that he can also lose the occurred season with this, putting him on. Now this hasn't happened. This is considered in air quotes. Putting him on this, so he would get paid, potentially getting fined $40,000 per day. That's why Spot Track said, listen, he needs to tread lightly. And people's putting under Spot Track and towards Jonathan Taylor, fire your agent. He's writing checks that your rear end cannot cash. So you put him on this, so he can't, they would still have his rights as if he 2023 never existed. Okay. Now, all that being said, and then on top of that, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk here said on this date, 1978, his dad, Jim Irsay Sr., the Colts announced that they would personally get involved in the contract negotiation with disgruntled star, this guy Mitchell. What's his name? Lindell Mitchell. Back in 78. Now, he's kind of turning into his dad. Now, I said Irsay's been more lucky than good as an owner, Jim Irsay Jr. Listen, he's inherited most of his ring as of owner that he inherited the team from his dad. He's had Peyton Manning and he's had Andrew Luck. He's a lucky mother bleeper, right? Hasn't really built anything on his own. Like Jerry Seinfeld said about this other comedian. He said, man, I'm a comedian. Okay. I'm a top-notch comedian. He said, this guy should be setting up pins at a bowling alley. Now, I don't know if Irsay will be doing that, but, he is normally known as a pretty nice guy. He could have traded Peyton Manning when Manning came back from that neck injury, even though at 36, coming off a neck injury, very serious, there was a market. They went on and released him, and they paid him prior to that, during all that. And they could have paid him in full. They could have got away with not paying him in full. They did pay him in full. They released him, let him go to a team he wanted to. He went to Denver, won a Super Bowl. And, of course, they got Andrew Luck there and hit it out of the park again. And, of course, Luck got tired of it. Got to get hit so much there. Didn't put a great team around him, and he retired early. But all that being said, if I'm Irsay, I wouldn't do that. That's a bad look. You say, well, owners don't have to answer nobody. People in grocery stores see the owners. People on social media, they say they don't read social media. They do. They do. And Pickle says, yeah, you could possibly take them to court there. But that being said, Yes, the running backs, as I stated last week on this program, they do have a point. They do have a point. And I like the word that Jim Irsay used, in good faith. For example, here, Le'Veon Bell was tagged back in 2018. We're talking just 5 years ago. And inflation is way up right now. And Le'Veon Bell his tag was $14 million. When your franchise tag, you're tagged as the top running back in your top 5 running back pay in the league. Now it's like 10 and some change. So it's went down $4 million, even though inflation. So it's really way down in the single digits for running backs. And most of your good years are spent on your rookie contract per se. And as I said, and I mentioned this on this program last week, it would be fair, and I think the owners aren't going to lose a lot of money, is to pay these guys. If you want to give them shorter contracts on the rookie contract, that's fine. But these doable incentive-based contracts where they can make way up in the millions as much as the top receiver, but in the league, this is over $30 million. Now that would be because sometimes these guys are your leading rusher and your leading receiver on your team. If you got a young quarterback, I think it would be fair. That would be fair. And plus, hey, listen, if you really want to win ownership, you're getting that kind of production out of a running back. It's worth the pay, right? And you had to do shorter deals, and it keeps them on their toes to want to perform at the highest level per se. That's all food for thought. I don't think that'll go about. Maybe they'll have some, watered down version of what I just said. But I think cooler heads will prevail. I think they'll probably work out something with Taylor. Taylor later went out and tweeted, "Hey, my back's fine. What are you talking about?" And, I'll probably tell my agent to shut the bleep up or go find another client, if I'm Taylor. I work my way back in. And like the guy on Spot Track said, I would tread lightly. That being said, when you're working with a guy, you've got Anthony Richards, very young quarterback there. He may be your leading rusher anyways. They may want to think about trading him. But there's so many good running backs out there that could be traded, Josh Jacobs included. Saquon Barkley don't have a long-term deal, So I'd probably try to stay in tip-top shape and do my job and do the best I can if I'm Jonathan Taylor, the second-round pick. I think he went to Wisconsin. He was great out of college, man. He had some injury problems or some fumble problems his rookie year. Real bad fumble against Baltimore. Not sure he would recover from that. Came back strong, played well. The Colts, much better offensive line than they look on paper at times. Much better defensive line. Remember, this team did beat the champs last year. They beat Kansas City last year. So they're not as bad as they look, Carlos says, as the world turns in Indiana. Yeah, it was a lot of drama over the weekend, man. That really was. It was a lot of drama there with the Colts. I'm reading all this going all the way up to Sunday night. This started Saturday, and then it started developing into Sunday night. And plus, you still got Dalvin Cook out there. He left New York. Chad was asking about Cook. He's 28, got plenty left in the tank. He is somebody's get out of jail free card when it comes to running backs. If I was him, I would probably look hard at the Jets. He wants to go to Miami. He's from Miami, and the blocking scheme's better for his skill set there. But Rodgers can get him the ball in open space. Ask Aaron Jones. Even if the line is shaky, I've seen Rodgers play well in the rest. Remember that year, a couple years ago, when Arizona had a really good start to the season. They were 7-0, and at home against a banged up offensive line in Arizona or in Green Bay, and Green Bay beat them. And a lot of that was quick, short passes to the running back from a shifty Aaron Rodgers. So that I think Cook probably gets signed in the next week or so. because we're getting into the preseason. You don't want to sign a guy too late that's a running back because his timing is going to be down and his football speed is not going to be up, and he could get hurt and the whole thing be a total waste of time and money. Now, Cook is playing the New York card, trying to raise his money. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. That is exactly what he's doing, playing the Jets against Miami and ultimately going to Miami, kind of like what Tyreek Hill did. I'd much rather live in Miami, but I don't know. Aaron Rodgers pretty good, man, but so is Tua. So it's a tough that's a tough one. That's a tough one to proceed. Miami took a big hit though. Their second best corners out until December. So the morale's down at the moment in Miami. Okay, got a few more minutes here. Nets. Max Scherzer traded to Texas. 39-year-old Max Scherzer, one of the only players in history to make $15 million with 3 different teams, Nationals, the Nationals, the Mets, of course, and now the Texas Rangers. All right, listen. Now they still got Justin Verlander. I think the trade deadline's tomorrow. Verlander's 40 years old. Rumored to be traded as well. And I was looking at World Series winners over the past 20 years, including Houston. Okay, this is what I read about Houston. The Astros have the greatest percentage of homegrown players of any champion this series. Now, this team since 2017, they've been to 3 World Series. They won 2. Okay, always going deep into the playoffs. And I know they had that cheating scandal and all that. Well, they proved that really they didn't really need to do that. They just got some really good homegrown arms. All right, and I'm looking at these past champions. Also, they talked about homegrown players made up a half of the World Series roster. The 2020 Dodgers. This site mentioned that the 2014 Giants, who won multiple World Series, homegrown roster. What about the Yankees? Yankees back in '96. There is a Wikipedia page called the Yankees Core 4. These are all homegrown guys. All right. Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, Mr. Consistent, Jorge Posada, and the greatest closer of all time, Mariano Rivera. These guys, 4 World Series there between them, and that's a dynasty. That's considered a dynasty. And, not to beat a dead horse, but listen, even in the biggest market out there, biggest media market out there, if you're Steve Cohen, take a step back and say, listen, man, let's stop getting these washed up players, 39 to 40-something years old. Let's go out here and get the best scouts and player personnel that money can buy, all right? Even if you got to get a Theo Epstein, by the way, who's employed with the MLB as a consultant. He's not working with Chicago no more. Epstein helped build the 04 World Series champs and Boston. Decades have been terrible. And then he goes in 2015, completes it with the Cubs there. And 2016, excuse me, and wins with the Cubs. I'm not saying go out and get Epstein, but I'm saying go out and get and build your core through hungry, homegrown players, even if you got to be media. You ain't got to be bad because you can still go out and get free agents. My thing is, don't go after every free agent. Don't go after every free agent you hear talked about on WFAN. Hire the right people. Do it the right way. You've got the time and the money. You may lose some fans for a temporary base there for a few years. But if you are his kind of billion, 15, 16 billion, richest owner in the league, and look across town, the Steinbrenners don't have it like their dad. They're not driven and hardcore like George was. They just don't have it in them, you know. But go out, hire this guy. You might not want to get this overrated Buck Showalter. He probably won't be the guy to manage them. But you do that. You build your core through your farm system. Then you can go out and get the proper culture setting type of free agents. Remember when the Dodgers first got new ownership? They was going after the. Then they slowed down and they let some guys walk. They picked and choose who they wanted to get. Then once they got their core guys, then they went out and got Mookie Betts. Okay, players like that. But build it up right. It may be a 5 to 7 year deal there. But once you start winning, you could become the king of New York again. Or if ever. It's always been the Yankees, right? You could be the king of New York and potentially one of the best teams in the country. Just do it the right way. Stop going after these 40-year-old has-beens. Do it the right way. Be patient. Like this, the Field of Dreams says, if you build it, they'll come back. If you build it, they will come. Remember that? The Field of Dreams. If you build it right, you've got the money to do so. Just have to be a little patient. People will come back. Because Newt Rodney says everybody loves a winner. He's a former coach of Notre Dame football team. People will just come back out of nowhere when you start winning. And you've got that core four like the Yankees did in the late 90s into the early 2000s. And then you add your pieces that gel with those guys, you know. And Pickle says, raid the Brave system. That's what I would do. I would go after who's running with the Houston, who's running with Atlanta. Try to get some of those guys. Be patient and say, listen, I don't care how long it takes. We're going to build this farm system up. And we're going to do it right way. We're not going to build a house on quicksand. You know, I used to work in real estate, and I was so eager just to get the money. And this guy told me, he said, listen, man, look how hilly it is. It's really hard to build over there in Maryland farms. But I said, yeah, it's beautiful view, yada, yada, yada. And he said, man, it's really, the terrain is not good over there. And sure enough, he was right, you know. It's an architect or whatever, $50. I can't remember what his title was. But a house later collapsed just after it built. The whole collapse. Nobody was in it, but it collapsed. You got to build it on solid foundation, man. You got to do it. It got to be patient. Do it right. Team chemistry. And add, you don't do it outside in, building free agents. Because a lot of those guys, they already got their money. The Yankees wouldn't have done anything if they would have just got A-Rod. And they wouldn't have had Jeter. And they wouldn't have had Rivera and Pettit. I mean, those are all core guys. Those are foundation. They keep your house locked down. You know, it's solid foundation. All them other guys, they're just individual personalities. Nets need to get pitchers. Yeah, you got to get some pitchers out of the minors who don't have that stuff. Yeah, you got to build your farm system up. You got to go out and get the people who do that. And that's going to take passing on some guys that WFAN's talking about. You're going to have to pass on some guys, and other guys, you go out and say, listen, look what we got coming up here. We could pay you $100 million plus. We can afford it. But now you're coming to a team that's more stable, not some 39-year-old pitcher who's got 2 or 3 rings and more money, and he knows he's got a nagging injury that we don't know about, you know. So it is what it is. And even going back to the Braves, I mean, I love Maddox, but he was really Smokes, Glavin, you know, who's it? Pendleton. Most of those guys were homegrown guys as well. You know, homegrown players, man. Homegrown players. Good manager, too. So it's not always built on the superstars, folks. If you like the show, share the show. 30 minutes into my show tomorrow, I've got a recorded interview with Kareem Blackston. Steve Avery, yeah. Now, Avery had an arm issue, but he was there too, yeah. Smokes was money, though, you know. I think Justice was a guy there. I know Chipper Jones was. You start going through that team, and those are just homegrown. Jones, Andrew Jones, homegrown. Chipper Jones. You know, then they added a Gary Sheffield. You know, then they added a Fred McGriff, or before that, after Fred McGriff was a free agent, you know. But so tomorrow you'll see me on for 30 minutes. Then 30 minutes, Kareem Blackston got a hot take he's got about the Titans. And this guy is a really strict critic. He that's why I like talking to Kareem. He's really he's not a cheerleader. He is not the cheerleader type. He's not a naysayer when it comes to Tennessee. He's just a straight shooter, and he's pretty well informed. Got a great interview coming up. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching the show. Please share the show. Let's build this thing up here. All right? Take some strain off me. Let's get some income coming in to this program. Trying to build this place up like the Yankees did back in the day. Yeah, and Carlos, he's going all into the he's saying they couldn't hit a that's funny. Losing base was big. No Diaz, no Quintana went down. It was all too much. Plus, couldn't hit a watermelon with a baseball bat. That's funny. Yeah, hey, sometimes when it rains, it pours, guys. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you same time, same place here on Sports.